Hello, hello. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pitchapalooza.
9th annual NaNoWriMo.
Unbelievable,
It's
right?
unbelievable. Almost a decade.
And so many
Oh my God, we had
success
so many
stories
Yes.
Out of this, which you guys can check out if you want on our website.
Yeah.
Where
we get great pitches. We love the Rhymos. There's just
so many great
It's one of the most amazing writing communities in the world, nay, the universe, I would say, because a lot of the people are writing stories about places that are not on the earth.
So a lot of you have no idea who we are or why we're here. So we're going to do a brief introduction.
My serious face now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or demented. I don't know which.
Shall we?
Ariel Eckstadt. She is has been a literary agent for over 25 years. She's the author of 9 and I would say 15, 16th books. She has a book due on April 1st, and that is not a Fool's Day thing.
No.
She's also an entrepreneur, which is the female of entrepreneur. She started a company called Little Mismatch, which began by selling socks that don't match in packs of 3s, and that company blew up. So there are stores all the way from Hollywood to Fifth Avenue, New York City, and perhaps most importantly, she is the mother of my child, Ariel Eckstadt.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to introduce David, who is the author of 16 books and counting. His first book was a memoir, national bestseller, and one of his last books was on the cover of the Sunday New York Times Book Review. And he writes on a wide variety of subjects, from memoir to middle grade fiction, from sports to reference. And his books have been sold in countries all over the world and to Hollywood. And perhaps most importantly, he is the father of my child.
Nice how that works, right?
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So as many of you know, this was part of NaNoWriMo's I wrote a novel, now what? What do I do? Months. And Kristy, our web guru, will be posting relevant links for those of you who don't know, who came to this Pitchapalooza not through NaNoWriMo, but through other means.
And we want to encourage people to keep writing during Camp NaNoWriMo, which starts in April.
Yep.
So there will be a recording of this available. Use the same URL link you're watching to watch it live here. The chat box on the right sidebar is for chatting with other participants and leaving questions.
And in fact, speaking of that, I am going to run and grab our iPad while you're doing that because we can't see the chat bar and I want to be able to see it. I'll be right back.
My wife is literally running, which is really not her forte. Many pronounce it forte, but I've heard, what? No, I've said how much I love you, sweetie. We're married, by the way, as well as being the parent of each other's, our child. So, okay, if the video freezes for some reason, hit the refresh in the browser. If it continues, try another application. If you're having tech troubles, email our superstar, Kristy, Kristi, Kristi, at thebookdoctors.com. Her email should be in the chat box. Okay, so here's how NaNoWriMo Pitchapalooza works. Every year, we send out a missive and people send their pitches into us. We got, I don't even know how many pitches this year, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. We don't even know the exact number, but it was more than we've ever gotten. So we read through all these pitches and we pick randomly 20 of the pitches. You look like you're about to say something.
I am.
Well,
I'm waiting for you to be done.
Look at that. She's waiting for me. She's not interrupting me, and that's hard. So you deserve a little kudo, a little high five. So we read through all the pitches. We pick 20 random pitches, and we're going to read them on the air and decide which one is the winner. The winner, as always, gets an introduction to a publisher or an agent who we think is right for her work. And as Ariel said earlier, already many, many people have gotten book deals from participating in the Book Doctors NaNoWriMo Pitchapalooza.
Yeah, so just to be clear on this, because people ask this all the time, do you just randomly pick them or do you read through them all to find out who is the winner for all of these, out of all of these? We read every single pitch. So no worries about that. Within these pitches that we're going to read are some of our absolute favorite pitches. But most of the pitches then and just randomly pulls from the group. So no one has to worry that their pitch got missed because we only read 20 pitches. That is not how it's done. And trust me, it is a mountain load of work to read all these pitches, but we want to honor every single.
Well, we enjoy doing it too.
We enjoy doing it, but everybody took the time and effort to write. It's so hard to write a pitch.
It's really ridiculous.
And so we want to honor you for doing that and let you know that they were read with care.
Yes. So if any of you are using social media, hashtag NaNoWriMo, spread the word out. You can tag us at the Book Doctors. And our Instagram, we just started, our daughter just started, the _book_doctors. That's where we are. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which we love doing. We put a new movie up.
In fact, we just did a video about our daughter starting our Instagram channel for us because we are not familiar with the Instagram.
And big advocates of having a child mentor, 13-year-old, or in our case, 11-year-old, telling you what to do, which they really enjoy, trust me. So every week we have a new video that comes out.
And Christy said, if you subscribe to us, there's a little bell, which I didn't even know, next to it, which will notify you when a new video comes out. Handy tip
like
from Christy.
When an angel gets their wings. Okay, so we have a fan favorite thing we do also. It begins tomorrow and runs through April 1st. And you can visit our website at www.thebookdoctors.com to vote on your favorite. And then the fan favorite will also get an introduction.
I think you're doing all the stuff that we're supposed to be doing at the end now.
Before questions.
At the start.
Dang!
Yeah.
Boy, I messed that up. We're going to have to start all over again. I'm sorry. Hello.
All right. We are going to get to these pitches because I know you're all anxiously waiting.
Let's do it.
So I think I'll read the first one. Okay. So this is called Amelia Raglan and the Haunted Barn by S.A. Sinclair. Before she moved to Lexington, Kentucky with her parents and cat on a leash Sulu, 10-year-old Amelia Raglan didn't think she would get to spend the summer horseback riding. She didn't think she would explore a creepy, potentially haunted old barn in her own backyard. And she definitely didn't think she would hunt down a thief responsible for stealing horse country's most valuable racehorses. Amelia's dream of taking riding lessons comes true when she moves next door to Gemma Sage. Gemma's dad runs a racing thoroughbred farm, and her mom is a riding instructor. Amelia learns all about riding and horses, including how to stop Loki the pony from eating her hair. But Amelia's new life isn't peaceful. Gemma's claim that the Raglan's crumbling barn is haunted by Mr. Emerson, the former occupant of Amelia's house, leads to a terrifying ghost hunting mission. Then the plague of horse theft sweeping Lexington strikes the Sages' farm, and Amelia's new friend Santi is blamed for the disappearance of their most promising racehorse. If Amelia and Gemma cannot discover the identity of the real thief and their connection to Mr. Emerson, Santi will stay in jail. The stolen horses will be lost forever, and Gemma's brother could get hurt, or worse. Amelia Raglan and the Haunted Barn is Stacy Gregg's Pony Club Secrets meets Linda Fairstein's Devlin Quick Mysteries with a little small spaces by Catherine Arden thrown in. This middle grade mystery novel is full of ghost hunting friendship and facing fears, but mostly it's full of horses. Woo!
So we both really like this pitch a lot, and I think you can see why if you listen to this and look it over. So first, the first sentence, there's a cat on a leash. The specificity, can't you just see that in your head?
Yeah.
Somebody walking a cat on a leash. I've seen it before. It's a funny thing. But the specificity of that is really lovely. It shows us right away that this person knows how to create word pictures that activate our brain. And she sets the whole thing up very nicely. She didn't expect this terrible thing. She didn't expect that weird thing. So she's just like a normal girl who's going to have a lot of crazy stuff happen to her, which is one of the backbones of this kind of book.
High stakes.
High stakes.
Good characters.
Yes.
Excellent comp titles.
Yeah,
so
great
for those of you who don't know what that means, the comparable titles to your book, this indicates to me that this author really knows her part of the bookshelf and reads a lot in this area. Personally, what I loved most is that when I was a middle grader, I was obsessed with horseback riding. As
many middle grade girls
so many middle grade girls are. And so to me, when you end with, but mostly it's full of horses, I just thought, how many kids will just go crazy for that? So how can we make this pitch better?
How do we make it better? See, I don't know if the haunted barn in the title makes it sound like it's just a ghost story. To me, there's a million ghost stories, but there aren't a million horsey stories with, cool with a ghost in it. So maybe the horse and the ghost should be in the title, but to call it the haunted barn doesn't really quite. I can capture what's great about
having
this.
a horse in the title.
Yes, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing is, if you think about what the cover would look like, it would obviously be populated with horses.
Well, I would certainly hope so.
Right.
However, the title is what you search for.
I
so,
agree.
As
a search,
and we live in a search engine world.
Absolutely.
So that's what I would say.
I totally agree. The only other thing is that Amelia, we know she loves horses, but at the end you talk about how this is a book about facing fears. And I'm not quite sure what Amelia is afraid of.
Yeah.
And that might raise the stakes even more if we know what she has to face that she hasn't faced before.
So in every great story, there's an inner conflict and an outer conflict. The outer conflict is perfectly clear in the story. You got a lot of problems, this poor girl does, but what is the thing inside of her that is causing her problems? What's the interior stakes?
Yeah.
The thing that she's going to have to overcome inside of herself. And it's a hard thing to put into a pitch, but you know what? If it was easy, we'd be out of it.
And I just want to say, as a pitch, this is so professionally done.
So beautifully done.
And that these are nitpicky things.
Yeah.
I mean, the title in a certain way is slightly bigger issue, but I think like what we can find that is wrong with the pitch is really at the level of like, I would say that this pitch is definitely ready to go out in the world.
We just had a comment.
I know, but I think we're going to hold questions
about comparable titles. But
So
also, we never said we had a book called The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published, in which all of these questions are answered about comparable titles and pitches and everything.
How did
The
we not
Essential
do that?
Guide to Getting Your Book Published. And by the way, anybody who buys a copy of that book does get to attend a free webinar in which their pitch will be deconstructed and critiqued.
We'll talk about that at the end as well.
Loving, kind way. All righty, that's number one. Okay, number two, by S. Shea. I'm assuming that's the author and not the title. 13-year-old Devante is poor and often homeless. He sleeps on the floor of apartments or in their rundown car without complaint. He eats one meal a day. He moves from school to school and spends time in the principal's office, which his mom attributes to the color of his skin, his intimidating height, and the ignorance of teachers and administrators. People stare at his parents, a petite woman with blonde curly hair and blue eyes, and a basketball tall man with a magnificently thick afro and skin as beautiful and dark as the black keys of a piano. He's a loner. His parents, the only people he trusts. When eviction slips litter their apartment, Devante's dad panics. He breaks his creed to never accept help or trust anyone outside of the family and makes a deal with a stranger to work a job for 2 days in exchange for staying at the man's house for 2 nights. He doesn't ask questions. The pay screamed high risk. They move in, and 2 days later, his father comes back from the job to find Devante beaten by the man's oldest son. In the backseat of the car, Devante forces himself to face the truth about his parents and his dream to live a different kind of life. But who can help him? Who can he trust? A 30-year-old urban educator, Shea, gives voice to the stories of children who experience homelessness in the foster care system.
This is such a beautifully written pitch. So many incredible lines.
Basketball-tall.
Dark
man.
as the black keys of a piano. Yeah. And also talk about getting you to feel what the character is going through. There's so much empathy in this pitch, which we can also see as an urban educator, that you are in contact all the time with children who are homeless or in the foster care system. And we can see your love and care for them through this pitch and what this kid is going through. There's incredibly high stakes. Yeah. I mean, really about the highest stakes that you can have here. And I'm also, there's something in the pitch that to read more, which is when you say Devante forces himself to face the truth about his parents. His parents seem like pretty good people. So I want to know what's going on here. Is it that what his dad does in this risky job or whatever? But it's a great little breadcrumb to make you go, ooh, I
want to know.
And we always say the most important thing a pitch has to do is make you say, I want to know what happens next, or I want to read more. So I feel like you really, really do that. For me, the main question is, I don't know where this sits on the bookshelf. Is this YA? Is this an adult novel? Is it literary? There are no comparable titles, and you don't actually say what the book is.
Yeah, the comparable titles, we'll answer this question later, but it's a shorthand of saying where the book's going to fit in the bookstore. Mm-hmm. As we saw in the earlier pitch, you can have 2 or 3 titles where an agent or an editor can go, oh, I see, it's this book meets this book. Oh, okay. And then they can go to their editorial board and say, oh, it's this book meets that book. And people go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more, which is, of course, what you want to pitch. It doesn't have a title. Mm-hmm. That seems problematic. Mm-hmm. I mean, title is one of the most important things you can have in a book. A title can sell a book, and there isn't one there, which I think is a mistake, quite frankly. It makes us think you can't come up with a title. And I know that given the writing, the quality of the writing in this, you can come up with an awesome title, I believe. I don't know, I just like the details in it also. About him sleeping where he sleeps and getting, in fact, speaking of details, he gets beaten
by the man's oldest son.
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more, like word pictures of, with a black eye or a busted lip or a tooth missing, something like that. Those word pictures are so important because, that's how the brain works. We see something and that's how it activates our emotions, etc.
I also want to say that this is a topic that I feel is of great import, and which in the past the publishing industry would have a hard, they wouldn't know what to do with it because they don't publish, we don't like to use the term diversity because it indicates certain kinds of stereotypes, but for the sake of this moment, that publishers tend to publish books by the people like them. And so kids who are in the foster care system and homeless is not the typical portrait of someone who works in publishing, who's an upper middle class white person.
Yeah, you're hard pressed to find a book that speaks to kids that has this subject matter and is written with intelligence.
Now, I just want to say, I recently reread The Outsiders, which is one of the pieces of classic YA literature, which is about kids on the wrong side of town and what they go through. So it's not to say that these books haven't stood the test of time.
Right,
But
right.
the main point is you're at a moment where people are looking
Finally.
for a book like this.
This is in demand. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Well done. Right here, Polyglot.
I know, but I need the next. Okay. So this is called Polyglot by Devyn Fussman. Polyglot, a person who knows multiple languages, AKA Isabel Brzezinski. She's the only 7th grader who loves French class and the 6 other languages she's learning for fun. Her dream job is world traveler, starting with Madame Angelique's spring break trip to Europe. Though Isabel's immersed in the world of words, her protective parents don't understand a thing she says about traveling. They want her safely in Plainville, population 1,000, preparing for her bat mitzvah and making Jewish American friends, not spending hours in Go Globe chat rooms with foreign kids and reading travel guides. Besides, they can't afford the class trip. They're too busy paying for a venue, a caterer, and everything else a Jewish girl needs to come of age. Isabel has 6 months to earn $2,100 and convince her family, especially her mother, that her baby, her only baby, is ready to leave the nest and see the world, even if she's 11. Soon, Isabel's teaching English to immigrants with Madame Angelique, Latin to the deaf kids at her dad's school, and French to her fellow classmates, all while juggling Hebrew school, regular school, and studying the Torah with Rabbi Joseph. Still, earning the money is only half the battle. Winning over her mother is the hard part. Every day, Isabel's yearning to see what's beyond Plainville's Jewish community grows. She has to follow her dream, even if her mother isn't ready for it. Polyglot is a 50,000-word middle grade novel inspired by my Jewish American family and semester abroad.
That's really a beautiful pitch. It's unusual. Mm-hmm. It's something that I think, teachers, educators of all kinds, librarians are going to just love, which when you're doing a middle grade novel, the parents are going to be, those are the people that are going to be buying the books oftentimes.
Yep.
And it's just, we've both read 20,000 pitches in our life, and I've never seen a middle grade book about a kid who's obsessed with learning cool foreign languages. Yeah. It's really unique, and yet it falls unique yet familiar. We're always trying to balance those things so that it's not too familiar and comes into cliche, and it's not too unique where you go, what the heck fire is that? So this really feels like a nice balance of a coming of age story about a nice Jewish girl who's trying to be different and do something else that is not really quite acceptable. But I mean, she's at one point, isn't she helping kids?
To raise money. The other things that I really love about the idea for this story, we have an 11-year-old.
Yeah, we do.
And we've tried to instill values of independence and self-sufficiency and making the world a better place. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think this girl who takes the initiative to raise her own money, to do something she's passionate about, is a message that I would like my daughter to read a book like that. So I feel that it's really in line with the kinds of female empowerment.
Yeah.
Like our daughter is obsessed with RBG.
Yeah.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg right now. So like that, this girl could be a future leader of the universe.
Absolutely.
So that's a wonderful thing.
Okay, so how do we make it better? I love the title Polyglot, but I don't know how many kids even know what that means. I don't know if you think that's a problem, but it's such a cool word.
It's such a cool word.
But I have reservations about whether a kid is going to go, oh, Polyglot, that's the book for me.
I don't have those reservations, but I understand why you're saying it.
I have my sort of publisher, agent, editor hat on, and there's no comparable titles here. So we don't know exactly, what books people who bought this book and that book are going to love my book.
And also because it would show us how much, as I said before, the category. Right. And I feel that you do, but it's not clear in here.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I wonder about is, could there be like a little clause that gives something about the character of the mother? We know she's kind of a nervous Nelly, but some tiny detail in there I think would be really fun.
I agree. And as I heard this out loud, I'm thinking to myself, well, are the stakes really that high? What's the worst thing that can happen if she loses? If she succeeds, she doesn't get to go to wherever. I feel like maybe there could be another thread in here about what's going to happen if she fails to raise the money. What's the worst case scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a kid. It's not the stakes like the previous pitch where
or the one before
life and death,
or you know, the racehorses are vanished.
But I feel like this is more internal. This is about wanting to step out of the safety of where you come from to expand
but
who
then
you are.
Those stakes should be higher. I mean, because in some communities like this, if you leave, you know, there's dire consequences. If you don't, you know, don't do the thing that you're expected to do, you're shunned. You become damaged goods in some way.
Okay. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, there could be something there. Okay.
But a wonderful pitch.
Wonderful pitch.
Really nice.
Yeah.
All right. This one is called Northern Souls by Georgiana Derwent. Sadie Sadler lives in London, practices human rights law, drinks fair trade coffee, reads The Guardian, which is a newspaper in England, and never ever burns her enemies alive using the powers of her mind. She's totally grown out of that sort of thing. Sadie's relatives have used their dark magic to control the Yorkshire town of Maneth for centuries. But now Sadie's brother, Brendan, is on trial for murder, and Gabe Miller, the charismatic and sinister head of the Sadlers' only rivals, is preparing to destroy her family. Only Sadie combines both the legal skills to defend an unwinnable case and the magical strength to face down their enemies' spells. The trouble is, there's a good reason Sadie left Maneth and turned her back on magic. She sold her soul to Gabe Miller to save her damn brother the last time Brendan got himself into trouble. If she returns and takes the case, he'll try to collect. But there's no way she's going to allow her brother to rot in jail or the Sadler's power to wane. Sadie's determination to forge her own path and stick to her principles is pushed to the limit as her family drag her back into the world of magic, violence, and power. And as she fights Gabe with spells and statute books, battling both her long-standing terror of him and her growing twisted attraction, Sadie must decide who Maneth's real villains are and how far she'll go for her family.
Woo! I think this is so funny.
It is. It's funny. It's funny.
So the beginning is hilarious.
So you set up this character. It's a real switcheroo with
total
the rug
switch.
pulled
It
right
just
out from
sounds
under
like
you.
realistic
Fair
fiction.
trade coffee, reads The Guardian, blah, blah, blah.
And never ever burns her enemies alive while using just the power of her mind.
Yeah, she's grown out of that sort of thing. It's a wonderful voice.
It is.
And one of the reasons, we did a bunch of research on why agents and publishers reject books, and voice very high up in the list. And before I got into the book business, I didn't even know what that meant. But it's as if someone's reading the book, whispering the book into your ear. It's the voice who's telling you the book. And we can tell this is someone who's witty and funny and knows how to work words.
We feel like we're reading the book.
Yeah, we do.
So we absolutely know what it's like.
That's right.
What it's going to be like to enter the pages. So to me, there's so much to like here.
Yeah, there is.
And the whole family versus the potential enemies or what have you. Again, it's a good setup here, and then we have the attraction as well. We get repetitive about this, and we'll probably continue to get repetitive about this. I have no idea if I'm assuming this is adult fantasy.
But that's an assumption.
But I don't know.
Assume you can make an ass out of you and me.
Exactly. So this is a book where, and also because of the humor, like what else what
Christopher
other
Moore?
Right, but that has its own kind of literary piece of it. So in a way,
I've read a bunch of his books. They're not quite so literary as you might think, but they're comedic.
Right.
But they're filled with darkness and magic and that kind of ghosts.
I consider him a comedic writer, not a fantasy writer.
But this is funny.
I know, so that's the question.
Yeah.
Where is it? Is it a comedic novel? Or it seems to me like a fantasy novel that's funny.
Yeah. Right.
as opposed to a comedic novel with
Fantasy
fantasy
element.
elements.
Yeah.
So those are the kinds of things that we really need to understand.
Yeah. Northern Souls as a title, it doesn't really move me so much. And I don't think it does this great story justice, to be honest. It doesn't really capture a lot of what's in this. It feels a bit generic, whereas the story is quite unique.
I agree. I didn't even look at that title.
Yeah, and I literally said it out loud.
Yeah.
At the beginning. So, and one of the things I like about this is that we're also always looking for things that are mashups of things we haven't quite seen before. Yes, we've seen a million magic stories. We've seen a million lawyer stories. But the magical lawyer story, I can't think of.
It's so funny.
Of a lawyer who's also, you know, has some sort of dark magic that who can burn enemies alive with the power of her mind. I mean, that's a really fun idea, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Hear Our Voices by Michele, LeNoir. Hear our voices, shout fascinating young adult refugee immigrants who struggle, albeit with humor and gratitude, to acclimate to the USA. You could read Homeland Security's annual yearbook, pages of statistics, stats per foreign country for each state's intakes for human trafficking victims, and more. But no human faces, no stories. No worries. I gotcha with A to Z chapter, quote unquote, voices, like voice O. May, who wandered her family's small, dank apartment, confused by no elevator. Don't all Americans have elevators? And voice F. Frederick, oh, this is a hard African name. Now mentored by a well-known artist whose father allows him to go to college as long as he works 36 hours in the factory to help pay bills. And voice Y. Estefany, maybe, Hernandez, who tells how she was rescued from human trafficking in Mexico and became a proud legal citizen. But this born in the USA woman to tell their story, am I reading this wrong?
No, you're not.
But this born in the USA woman to tell their stories, well, yes. They first shouted them out to me as their teacher and to one another in a dual credit speech course in an international high school. Now graduated, they still share their stories, their goals, their needs, and I still teach them. Some how to drive, some how to survive college on 0 family savings. Think of this nonfiction book of 91,500 words as a condensed telling of the many immigrant stories available, like Lauren Markham's The Brothers Far Away and Abdi Noor Iftin's Call Me American. Hear our voices, they shout, I shout, you will shout once you know more. Oh, and yes, there are some pictures.
Nice. Well, this is just a fascinating pitch, and it seems like it literally could not be any more timely with what's going on in the world. And, you know, the otherization of huge groups of humans. And one of the ways that we know people who aren't like us and can then have empathy with them is by meeting them. There's been all kinds of studies that show that when groups that hate each other, when they actually have to sit down and meet each other and talk to each other and learn about each other, all of a sudden, guess what? They don't hate each other anymore. They become friends, some of them. And this seems like such an important piece of work. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there is kind of a, an onus against anthologies. But, you know, I myself am the author of several anthologies, and they can be really, you know, world-changing things if they're done correctly, because they have so many different voices and we meet so many different people around this particular subject. It has some fantastic comparable titles, and the whole thing feels uplifting the way it's written. It just feels like this book could be dark and have just nothing but horror stories in it. And yes, there's some horror stories in it, and there needs to be, but we also have a sense that there's going to be some levity and some joy in the work as well, which is incredibly important, I think.
I also, like I said, of the other teacher whose pitch we read earlier.
Yeah.
I just feel so touched
Yeah.
by both of you and how you just seem like such wonderful teachers. We can tell in these pitches how much you care about your students. And I think that is actually really important to the pitch.
I do too.
Because you communicating your love for these kids helps us to connect to them as well. And I think it's an absolutely wonderful collection. I have seen in the marketplace recently similar collections that are coming out. So it's important for you to be educated about what's not only already published, but what's in the pipeline. And for everybody who's watching, there are several ways to do this. There's an online newsletter called Shelf Awareness and Shelf Awareness for Readers, which is Shelf Awareness itself is aimed at booksellers to tell them what's going on in the book business. And Shelf Awareness for Readers is to tell readers about what's coming down the pipeline that's going to be published soon. So you can get a feel for what's out there. There's also something called Publishers Lunch. And the main industry rag is called Publishers Weekly. And they all have online versions. And some of them require payment for full access, but most of them you can see a version of without, and they're also available in any library. So that would be an important thing so that you understand how to position your book next to the other books that might feel similar to publishers.
We always say that displaying your passion is one of the most important things you can do in any aspect of publishing and in life probably as well. And we feel, I don't know if you did too, but I felt an incredible passion coming out of this work. And passion is contagious. It sucks us in. We were once at a Pitchapalooza and some guy was reading his pitch. I said, just stop. I had to stop. Stop reading and just tell us what the book's about. He went, okay, the universe is totally connected to everything. And we're like, whoa, yes, I love this. I didn't even know what it was about, but he was so excited that we all got excited. And this author, Michele LeNoir, is excited about this, and we can tell she's passionate. And
actually, that brings up a point for me, which is some things I don't even think work in the pitch. Like, I don't know why it's A to Z voices. Certain lines kind of tripped me up, but your passion won me over. So I do think this needs a little bit of cleaning up.
Yes, some smoothing and polishing. Yes, I agree.
Because as you could see when we read it, there were certain things that we were like,
she stumbled over.
I wasn't sure how it should even be read.
Yeah.
All right.
But well done. Library Hell, which I think is a great title, by the way, by Kristina Cooper. Monica and Becky are gluing sparkles onto paper ducks, writes Ann Hayes in an email to a coworker. Just another day in the lunatic asylum. Those are quote. So Anne wants to catalog her journals in peace, but the university library where she works attracts crazy employees the way a black hole sucks in light. Cereals, librarian squeaks and sighs and hoards campus mail and numbered boxes. Her husband, the cataloging librarian, wears his jeans pulled up to his neck and knocks over library carts when enraged. Monica Sharp, a recent hire, is obsessed with organizing fanatic Flock Fridays. Fantastic Flock Fridays and winning the Dynamic Duck Contest. This contest, named after the university's mascot, was created by the PR department in an effort to rally employee morale at the financially struggling Lakeville University. As the academic year trudges on, unhappy library staff vent their hostilities at meetings while the director hides in his office and composes desperate emails calling for staff harmony. When Anne mocks a fantastic Flock Friday event, she becomes the target of Monica's increasingly unhinged attempts to win the Dynamic Duck Contest and gain campus-wide fame as a team leader who solves problems, Anne being the problem. To keep her job and her sanity, Anne will have to get a little crazy to fight crazy. A series of email exchanges between co-workers reveals the story of a library staff striving to stay relevant in a paperless world that is redefining what higher education means, and to do so without killing each other.
Okay. hilarious.
It's so funny. The jeans pulled up to his neck. I mean, there's just so many lines in here that just the first thing we read, Monica and Becky are gluing sparkles onto paper ducks. That's so funny. Can't you just see the ducks with the sparkles? I mean, it's just such a funny, weird line to start with. It just sucks you right in.
It really does. I've never seen that in a pitch.
I never have either.
You know, and this reminds me of one of my favorite novels of the past decade, which is called Dear Committee Members.
Which could be one of your
should be in here.
titles.
And Kristina, if you're watching, put in the comments whether you know that novel. I mean, in the chat, because if you do know it, then great. If you don't know it, you should run to the bookstore. And there's actually you know what? Yeah, there's a sequel to it as well.
Yeah.
But just this novel is written as a series of emails exchanged, and Dear Committee Members was written as an epistolary novel written solely as recommendation letters, which sounds impossible.
And
yet full character, plot, arc, everything. So that is your book here, and it was a huge success.
Yeah. It won the American Comedy Novel of the Year award.
Right. So in terms of what to make better, it's funny because someone pointed out in the chat that there's lots of quote unquotes, like Fantastic Flock Fridays. There's actually only 2 besides the beginning, which is actually just a conversation. Yeah. But I think you can take out Fantastic Flock Fridays. I think
doesn't need
sit on its own, just as Dynamic Duck Contest. And then you only get this on Higher Education, which makes sense. It's a tiny little thing, but and you have to have the comp titles.
And one thing that I thought could be made better, well, not the one thing, but one of the things I thought could be made better was, again, like, we don't really get a glimpse inside of Anne and what is her internal struggle. We have a fantastic external struggle. Everything around, it's like, you know, Rome is burning and she's trying to, you know, get her library in order. Yeah. But what does she inside of her want? You know, I'm assuming this is an adult novel and there's no sort of love interest in there or anything. And I don't know if that's the way it is in the book, but usually in a story like this, there's some sort of thing that she wants besides just staying alive and not losing her job.
Right, that's true.
I think that would be a great thing to add to this.
By the way, someone put in the chat that's not more than 250 words. This is, I can tell on the pages, is nowhere near 250 words, which I think speaks to how much was put in here in storytelling to make you feel like it was much longer, when in fact, not in a good way. Yeah. Because so much story was packed into such a small space. Do you think it is more than 200 words? No, I can tell it's absolutely not.
That's what I thought.
Oh, no. That's like 200 words max.
Yeah, it's amazing how Einstein's theory of relativity applies to so many things. We feel like we've spent a lot more time here than we actually have, just because there's so much fantastic story and words crammed onto this page in a way that doesn't feel crammed. It feels like someone is really a master at storytelling. And it's funny how in 250 words or 200 words, you can tell whether someone can tell a story and create a character. I mean, that's the beauty of a pitch. And it's
laugh out loud funny.
It is laugh out loud funny. And that is hard to do.
Yeah. Okay. All the Yellow Suns by Malavika Kannan. Vincent van Gogh was I'm going to stop for 1 second because
Mo, come on.
That's our dog.
No, that's our daughter down there. She's going crazy.
I just don't want this pitch to be interrupted. Okay. Vincent van Gogh was an incurable artist. He couldn't help eating yellow paint. 15-year-old Maya Kamal is an incurable idealist. She couldn't help falling for Juno Zale the day she immigrated to the United States. A human tidal wave and Renaissance masterpiece combined, Juno is the de facto leader of the pugilists, a merry band of high school mischief makers who right the wrongs of the world each Friday. Immediately, Maya finds herself drawn to Juno and her boundless way of living. They forge a friendship over trips to the Metropolitan Museum, crusades for social justice, and life or death escapades in the colorful inner city neighborhood of Columbia Heights. But as their bond grows stronger, Maya begins to suspect that there's a whole different person beneath Juno's painted-on facade. The harder she looks, the farther she finds herself from the girl she once idealized. Because without meaning to, she's allowed Juno Zale to steal a piece of her heart. Now she will never be the same. All the Yellow Suns is written by an Indian-American teenage activist exploring Gen Z themes of race, womanhood, and justice with refreshing candor and depth. Told through poignant and philosophical vignettes, it follows Maya's journey to find the truth in Juno's mysterious mixed-up world. The girl she loves is counting on her.
So, a lot to love about this pitch.
Starting with the
The
title,
All the Yellow
gorgeous.
Suns. God, it really is. You can just see the cover, kind of, can't you?
Yeah. And I want to emphasize, this was written by a
Teenage,
teenager.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's very sophisticated for anybody, but particularly a teenager. And we didn't read about the author, but she has amazing credits. She's written Washington Post and Teen Vogue and many, many places. And that's important because if I'm an editor or I'm an agent and I see, oh, here's an 18-year-old who's already been published in all these places, that's going to fill me with confidence that this person is going to be able to take this book and run with it once it gets published. And I don't know, there's just, it feels very contemporary. It feels like right now. It feels like, you know, it's got activism in it, a merry band of high school mischief makers. There's going to be some fun in it. There's a very interesting love story in the middle of this that feels very like not your standard love story that you see over and over again. It feels like it's very unique and very particular.
And I think the beginning is such an interesting way to start about Van Gogh was an incurable artist. He couldn't help eating yellow paint. It's such a, and I'm assuming All the Yellow Suns is that Van Gogh somehow makes it into the story. If he never does, that's a little bit problematic.
Yeah, see, that was the, I love the opening line, but then I'm like, well, because you create an expectation that Van Gogh and the yellow paint is going to have some sort of resonance throughout the story, and yet that's the only thing we see of him. Which to me is slightly problematic.
Yeah. And I also, one of the things that I particularly like, having grown up in New York City, is these trips to the Met from Columbia Heights. I love that Columbia Heights is part of the story and might be even kind of a character unto itself, which I think is terrific. For me, where the pitch, I think, honestly, I'm confused and I'm not fond of it, is told through poignant and philosophical vignettes. That makes me think that this is not a novel. I don't know what it is. Vignettes don't make me see continuity in this story. So I don't know what you mean by that. And I certainly would take it out. Also, the idea of telling us that it's poignant and philosophical.
It's like when you meet someone and you say, I'm a poignant and philosophical person.
Right.
Let me be the judge of whether you're poignant and philosophical. If you haven't proved through your pitch that you're poignant and philosophical, you telling us that is not going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. The fact that you are a teenage activist, I like exploring Gen Z themes of race, womanhood, and justice. That feels so on point.
It does. It's great.
So I thought that was excellent. And you could use some comp titles as well.
You could. And other thing that
Poet X, for example, would be a good comp title for you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right, honey. I don't mind. So, the other thing that the high school mischief makers who are righting the wrongs of the world, you just sort of drop that in there, and I don't know quite how that manifests. I would love to see one of their, whatever it is, a prank, some sort of social justice thing. So, because saying that is interesting to me, but I don't know how you're going to pull that off. I don't see proof in that pudding. And I know there's limited space here, but that felt like sort of a wasted opportunity that made me think, well, I don't know what that is exactly and how that would manifest.
Great.
But very well done.
Okay, that's.
Yep. Okay. Meritocracy by Michael Sherrin. In a city governed by test scores, Abel Allen is the most average citizen. He's been stuck in the same job for years. He eats the same bland meal every night, and he's not allowed to ask out the woman he loves, all because of his test scores. After a coworker is murdered, Abel discovers something that can replace studying, a pill that contains all the answers to all the tests. This answer key is rare and highly illegal. He must decide if breaking the law is a worthwhile price to no longer feeling average. It was awkward. But something that valuable doesn't stay secret for long. Abel's boss, the mob, and the police all want the answer key, forcing Abel to decide who to trust and how to avoid getting caught. He discovers strengths and skills not found on his test results and sets upon an adventure that puts the entire city under evaluation. Let me read that last sentence again. He discovers strengths and skills not found on his test results and sets upon an adventure that puts the entire city under evaluation. Meritocracy is a sci-fi noir with a dark sense of humor that questions how a standardized system can be fair to our individual qualities. Fans of bureaucratic nightmares will find much to love in this mashup of 1984 meets Office Space.
So I love the title.
Yeah, Meritocracy.
I think it's great.
And God, especially given the scandal
Right,
that's rocking
and
higher
that word has
education,
come
even
up.
as we speak. Meritocracy.
That word has come up over and over again
It has.
in the press about that as well.
Yep.
And
If this book is done, it's got to get out into the world quickly.
I think the idea is such a good one.
Yeah, it's really good.
That first of all, it's the most average guy.
Yeah.
And that everything is done by test scores is wonderful.
It's great.
But I also like the twist that he finds out he's not the most average guy and he really does have skills. So I think that's really an important one.
It is.
So I'm taken with the idea. The pill feels a little easy to me. I don't know why, just as a...
Yeah, but it's a trope that's much
trope.
used in this world. And he's using it in a different way. I think that doesn't bother me.
I kind of felt like one of the things that you say in the end is a dark sense of humor. That did not come through in the pitch
Where's
at
the
all.
comedy? I didn't even see a glimpse of that.
Either that has to come out or we need to see some comedy in here. The idea of 1984 meets Office Space is hilarious.
Yeah, it's really good.
The only thing is, typically we don't like using titles like 1984 that are so, just
iconic.
Most famous books ever written. Also, 1984 doesn't feel like this book to me.
No.
And it's not noir.
Right. No, it isn't.
So I don't.
Nor is the Office Space, frankly.
But I think if you did something that's noir meets Office Space, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't really see the Office Space sensibility quite in here. I see the idea of it, but Office Space is a laugh out loud comedy. And I didn't even grin during this thing.
But the idea of he's been stuck in the same job for years, that the
content feels right, but the tone is way off from Office Space.
Okay.
And, in any noir book, the dame has to play a bigger role. I mean, he doesn't you mentioned once that the woman he doesn't get to ask out the one he loves, but then she's not ever mentioned again. So that's an important part of I'm a noir lover, and there's got to be a dame that, hopefully that, plays a part in this and that isn't quite who she seems like she is. Maybe she is working for the mob or something, but there needs to be some sort of twist here. And I don't know, the villain, who's the villain in the piece? The mob? The police? There's nobody in this pitch who makes me go, ooh, that's a scary and unique and interesting villain.
Well, Abel's boss, that might be.
I
So
know,
we
but-
need more.
But yeah, we need
Yes,
more.
we need
Yes,
more.
absolutely.
But
yeah.
I really think this is original
Yeah,
and
me too.
timely.
And it's very timely, and it's a cool idea that I think is gonna. I mean, can't you just see a Netflix series about this?
Yeah.
A world where your test question reminds me of this. There was a Black Mirror episode where everything's your ranking in society is based on your popularity numbers, like how many people like you on Facebook. It's a cousin of this.
Yeah.
So maybe Black Mirror might be one of your comparables.
Okay. Confessions of a Chameleon by Becky, Ances. In our mid-30s, my husband and I left our cats and cozy home in the New England hills to teach English in a small, dirty industrial city in southern China. We thought we were living the dream of following our bliss and leading an adventurous life as an unstoppable couple. And then my husband asked me for a divorce. I was truly alone, friendless, and lost in a foreign country, surrounded by a strange culture and strange people where I could barely order food at a restaurant, much less contact my friends on Facebook or Twitter for support. Both were blocked by the Chinese government. Faced with those problems, most women would pack it up and go back to the comforts of home. But I decided I wanted to stop being most women. I saw living alone in a foreign country as a challenge that I could overcome. If only I could find the courage to leave my house. Part travelogue, part personal journey, Confessions of a Chameleon, memoir, 86,000 words, is a journey around China. From small villages in which no foreigner had been seen in remembered history to modern fast-paced cities like Hong Kong and Shanghai. But really it is a journey into an even more exotic location, myself, and figuring out who I am without the title of wife, friend, or American. What color is a chameleon when it has nothing around it to blend into?
That's a beautiful. You got her. She's crying. My wife has got tears.
Yeah, that was good.
It's a beautiful last line, isn't it?
Beautiful.
I think that's so deep and poetic and colorful, and it's really gorgeous, that last line. I mean, there's a lot of great writing in it, but to end with a great line is it's a really good thing in a pitch, in a book.
It also has a great end to the first paragraph. And then my husband asked me for divorce, which is a real surprise.
It is.
I think the pitch is very professionally
Me
written.
too.
And I think there's really interesting detail and stakes and everything. A couple things for me. I would actually say, faced with those problems, most people would pack it up and go back to but I decided I want to stop being most, because I think actually identifying only women isn't fair to women, because it's true. Most people would just pack it up.
Yeah, and it's not good business.
Right.
Frankly.
Exactly. I think there's very little that needs to be done with this pitch. The question for you is, there are many books,
tons of books,
memoirs of people not only who have gone to China, but people who've gone to other locations in the world. And many of those books some of those books have done well, and many of them have not.
Well, it's in the Eat, Pray, Love.
It is in the Eat, Pray, Love, but how many books do we hear?
Oh my God.
That is the worst comp title anyone could ever use except for Harry Potter.
It's Harry Potter meets Eat, Pray, Love.
Right.
There you go. So yes, again, unique and familiar. This is very familiar in many ways, and I think it does need to be a little bit more unique. And one of the things that I found missing was, we always talk about world building when we're talking about a fantasy novel, but this is you need a little more world building. I need to see some word pictures about I've never been to China. I mean, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it smells like.
So like, for example, when you say from small villages in which no foreigner had been seen in remembered history, I went to China 20 some years ago when it was common to go to a village and not have anyone seen. So like when I went to not even a village, I was in a big city, and I went to a classroom setting. And when I told people that I was Jewish, they asked where my horns were. So that's the kind of detail.
By the way, there's a little button in the back of the head. You can retract the horns just in case.
But something so crazy that happened to you, either because people were unfamiliar or you were in a crazy situation, is better than saying that, you know, no one had ever seen. So that kind of detail can help. But I think for you, the task is to get something published someplace else first that does incredibly well and shows people that there's an audience, because otherwise it's going to be very easy for people to say there are too many books like this that haven't performed. And that's just from a publishing professional's
we get these
perspective.
Yes, these kinds of stories in all the time. Someone asked if it's okay to have a pitch in the first person. And here we have a pitch in the first person. If a novel, I would say absolutely not. You wouldn't want your pitch to be in the first person, even though your book might be. Like The Fault in Our Stars is written in the first person, but the pitch is not, certainly.
Right.
No way. And generally speaking, like I'm a memoirist, and I don't write the pitch for my memoir in the first person.
Yes, you do.
Not by the time it gets to the publisher.
Oh, yeah, but for this
But
purpose.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
For submission only.
Yes.
Which we did a video on that recently. For the purposes of a submission, absolutely. If you're writing a memoir, we want it to know it's you. It's me. It's I. I'm going to be the one that goes on The View and talks to the ladies about how to persevere when your stupid husband leaves you in the middle of China. So yes, and I thought it really worked, the first person here.
It did. It was wonderful.
And we don't have any comparable titles here, do we?
No.
That's a problem. But a really interesting pitch and some wonderful
and emotionally
writing.
So on target. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yep. Okay. Title: Solving for X, an inside look at the investigation that captured America's most prolific serial arsonist, Thomas Anthony Sweet. Federal case number 760, etc. by Bob Luckett. Solving for X is an inside look at the 22-month investigation that tracked, hunted, arrested, and successfully prosecuted the most prolific serial arsonist in the history of the United States. The work takes each reader on the roller coaster ride, which is being a part of the task force that did outstanding work. The Washington, D.C. region was under siege in 2003 when a group of residential fires with an eerily similar ignition source was discovered. They become part of the sleepless nights. They feel the anger investigators dealt with while dealing with information leaks and the politics of being part of a group that had to please local, state, and federal administrators. They feel the exhilaration of the arrest and confession. The reader then gets an inside look at the emotions and actions of the sociopathic murderer, it should be, Thomas Sweet, as he sits and talks with investigators about why he did things, what he was thinking, and how he lived. The readers are with investigators in the federal prison in Indiana, where Sweet tells them just how difficult it was for him to be in a simple conversation with other men. He just could never be himself. When guys would be talking about cars or sports, he wanted to be talking about gardening or cooking. Finally, the readers also learn about the things that went well and the things that failed in this 73,000-word book that is solidly grounded in factual information and intrigue.
I think the title for this book is brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good.
I love it.
It's really good.
It's one of the best titles.
You can just see the cover.
Oh my gosh. It is amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
There's always a love of this true crime story, and if it's true that it's America's most prolific serial arsonist, that's
and this book hasn't been written yet,
right?
Which I'm assuming it hasn't, because you probably know a lot more about this subject than I do.
Okay, amazing title, great idea to do this.
Fantastic idea.
The pitch itself is, to me, in all over the place.
That is, yeah.
And I don't understand how the book goes from beginning, middle to end.
We don't get a sense of a plot.
No plot, no arc, no structure. A lot of information that's interesting, but not that thing we need to make us say, I can't wait to know what happens next. So the setup and even some of the sentences themselves are very hard to read.
They are.
And then lastly, for me, is why are you the person to write this book? How do you have the information? Are you a journalist? Or were you on the task force, etc.?
In any kind of nonfiction book like this, we need to answer that question. If I'm an agent, I'm an editor, like, who the hell are you to know all this stuff? That you have to have some information about that and some comparable titles to let us know how, if it's going to be literary, is it just going to be straightforward fact-telling? And honestly, there are no characters in this story except for Thomas Sweet. And that is a huge problem. In all these stories, generally, you find one person or a couple of people to follow them, the lead investigator.
Exactly.
And we also find out who the lead investigator is and his problems in his life and how the investigation wears him down and his whole life starts to crumble because he's obsessed with this thing. That's how these stories almost always work. And
a great example of this is the book that was written by the woman, the Golden Gate. Is it the Golden Gate Killer? Who was the wife of the comedian?
Yes, Patton Oswalt's wife.
Patton Oswalt's wife. That book really, really did that. So that would be a good one to look at. So, and by the way, in the chat, people are saying there might be some confusion. We are not saying to give away what happens at the end. The complete opposite. We want to feel like we need to know what happens. And when we say next, the farthest you'd want to take us into a book is 2/3 of the way through.
Right.
So we don't want to know.
Leave us hanging by our fingertips off the edge of the cliff. That's what you want. So ideally, when you finish a pitch, a person's response should be, oh my God, what happens next? How did it happen? Tell me more. And it's a great story.
Great story. Great title. All right. Revenge Prose by Beth Burnett. Revenge is a dish best served published, or so Crystal and Susan find out. Dumped by their significant others, Crystal, a stripper with a heart of, well, not exactly gold, but certainly good intentions, and Susan, a happy homemaker and full-time supporter of her perpetual student husband, find themselves newly single and in a bit of a financial pickle. It's Susan who bubbly suggests to practical Crystal that they start writing revenge prose, stories in which ugly, hairy men are killed in interesting and hilarious ways. Their stories go viral thanks to the unsolicited help of Crystal's new acquaintance and potential love interest, and the women find themselves reliving the past as exes try to sabotage their success. If Crystal can learn to trust and Susan can learn the power of saying no, and together they might build the foundation of a promising publishing future. Did I read that right?
Yes. Such a fun idea for a story, isn't it? I mean,
my gosh.
I'm watching this show called Good Girls now, and it's about these 3 women. Just, I don't want to call them average in any way, but they're just their wives and their moms, and they combine to start robbing banks and going into this life of crime, and it feels like in the zeitgeist with this story. And I love the first line. Revenge is a dish best served published. That's really good. So you're taking something we're familiar with and twisting it. Yeah,
and I would say about that first sentence something that I felt about the whole pitch. I would end with, as they say in England, a hard stop.
Yeah, hard stop.
Revenge is a dish best served published.
Bam.
Period.
That's it.
Or so Crystal and Susan find out.
Next sentence.
There are so many compound sentences
here.
It's
very confusing.
I really had trouble knowing if I was reading them correctly. All the words are good. You just need to put periods instead of commas in here.
And since the book is about writing and prose and publishing, you want this to be really polished prose, and right now it doesn't feel like it is, quite frankly.
So this is a very short pitch, and I feel like you have room to breathe in here to give us a little bit more about each of these characters, because this is great women's fiction. Like this really has all the stuff.
Sweet spot.
And I love the idea of this revenge prose that goes viral. I think we also need to know, one way to expand this is, I'm assuming, and in any good plot about a friendship, there's got to be something where they don't agree or bump up against each other.
And it seems like their friendship and their partnership is going to be, you know, for naught, and it's going to get things are going to go wrong.
It seems flawless. Here.
Right.
So if we could get a little more of that, I think it would help to raise the stakes as well here.
And I just want to also know more about the machinations of the plot. What actions happen, A, B, C, that are increasing with increasing consequences and stakes and difficulties. And I don't get that yet. And again, there are no comparable titles in this story. And that's a huge detriment.
So part of the reason why it's such a detriment when you have something like women's fiction spans the gamut from the most commercial fiction you could ever have, which would be a romance that follows Harlequin rules.
A Danielle Steelish type of thing, yes.
To very literary upmarket novels.
Joyce Carol Oates.
Right. Anything that has to do with female friendship or what
Margaret Atwood, or you know,
right.
Those are all examples of female fiction.
So obviously this is more commercial, but I don't know where on the bell curve this falls.
Yeah.
And that's where comp titles in a genre that is so wide would be incredibly helpful to have.
And this is for all genres. Science fiction, there's all different kinds of science fiction, and mystery and thrillers, and they all, in all these giant categories, are the little tiny fiefdoms that we see, and we want to know where your book would fit into all of that.
Yeah.
But a really fun story. Okay, Love Boy by Margarita Maldonado. Barely a month after her 12-year-old Shih Tzu Rocky dies from cancer, a still grieving Janet Flores learns that her employer of the last 7 years, the local newspaper, is canceling her bi-monthly garden column, In the Garden with Flores. That same week, Janet's grown son, Liam, a recently graduated computational mathematician, announces he's off to the Arctic to study climate change, and Janet's older sister informs her that her father is exhibiting signs of dementia. In desperate need to exert some control over something in her life, Janet decides to start a big new gardening project at home, but winds up throwing her back out in the process. When new neighbors move in next door with a dog, they leave tied up in the yard 24/7. A recuperating Janet befriends him, calling him Love Boy whenever she speaks to him through the fence, in part because she's never heard the new neighbors address him at all beyond telling him to shut up. Increasingly worried about the approaching summer heat, Janet decides she's going to try and help Love Boy get free of his tether, but both the neighbors and events conspire against Janet, forcing her to determine just how far she's willing to go to try and create change, and whether one person can ever really make a difference or not, based in part on true events that are still unfolding.
Oh, this really
Sweet.
tugged at my heart.
Very sweet. Very sweet.
As you can see by looking at the bestseller list, lots of books about the connection between humans and dogs populate the top of those lists.
They do.
And a part of me wonders whether you should write this as nonfiction if it is based on true events, rather than fiction, although I realize there might be consequences to that based on the neighbors. So maybe based on true events is good enough, but it's such a sweet story. For me, I think it's really good setup. Everybody leaves. She's left alone. Her column is canceled. She throws her back out. When she throws her back out, I'd like to have something more about how limited she is.
Yeah, right.
And both in terms of being with other humans,
right,
and in being able to occupy her time. The desperation that comes when you're physically injured and you have all these other things that are going on.
And your support system's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that needs to be, and then at the end, but both the neighbors and events conspire against Janet, forcing her to determine just how far she's willing to go. You get so generic there.
It's just, I felt the same way. I mean, all the specificity was gone. I didn't really feel, it just didn't get inside of me. It didn't penetrate, as Jane Austen says. And I didn't know what the action was. What is the action of this book? There's no, the last paragraph of this is all about ideas, and there's no action there. And that's when we need our action.
And maybe you don't know because it's still unfolding and you're not sure how this is going to happen. That's fine. If you're still working on the book, we totally understand. You'll figure out what it is. The last thing is that I need a description of this dog. As a dog lover, as a dog lover, you know, is he a shaggy?
What is Love Boy?
Is he a shaggy black dog? Is he a little runty chihuahua?
Does he jump up on you and give you kisses on the face? Does he roll around? What, you know, our dog, when we see him, I just came home from a trip.
She speaks to him through the fence.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, is that the only contact she has with
I don't
the
know,
dog?
but so we need to know like what these conversations are.
Right.
Does he vocalize back at you and all that kind of stuff? Because that's the heart of what this book is.
Yeah. And again, no comparable titles. And there's a million dog books, and we need to know how yours is different from this one and the same as that one. And readers of this book and that book will like this. And also, these sentences are 10 times as long as they should be. The first sentence alone, I don't even know where I was at the beginning by the time I got to the end. And I believe the last paragraph is one long sentence, and it's just not good to have a sentence that long. We get lost in them. You know, that should be 4 sentences, and it's 1. So that's just a tip for everyone out there.
Okay. East Side Story by Elizabeth Wilder. Newly minted diplomat Jennifer Westfield thinks she's landed her dream job in Jerusalem until she realizes she has been set up to fail. Her staff is MIA, pampered multinational toddlers and their parents have overrun her office, and the Palestinian and Israeli undergraduates in her program who are enrolled in conversational English refuse to speak to each other. As Jennifer gets to know her students, she realizes they are powerless in an endless conflict. Challenging typical diplomatic assumption, she tries something, gasp, new. The students won't talk, but maybe they'll sing. Starting with 6 fellow music lovers, Jennifer teaches folk songs to the students. While the words are confusing, why is Susanna crying?
I like that line.
Their shared passion for music elevates the program and attracts both notoriety and praise. With the help of operatic UN diplomat Timo Kovac from the Adipose unit, Jennifer's expanded show choir attempts to stage a musical that should have been set in Jerusalem, West Side Story. Can she find a performance venue? Will any VIPs attend? And will this ruin her budding career? Jennifer has to look within and around her to recruit a team of fellow diplomats who want to, quote, dream the impossible dream. East Side Story is a Christopher Buckley-style satire caught with a little glee. I'm a musical-loving expatriate who sings only in the shower. East Side Story is a 60,000-word NA contemporary novel.
I believe that's new adult.
It is.
And for all you people who, all writers out there who don't know what new adult is, it's like a stage between YA and adult.
Mm-hmm.
And it's become a very popular subgenre. So this is just so fun and feels so timely.
It's truly fun.
It is fun, and it's
It makes me feel good.
It does make me feel good too, and I can just see it in my head. I like to live in America. So, but you know, and how they would change that and make. I just watched West Side Story the night. It's such a great movie.
And I love the idea of Christopher Buckley mixed with a little Glee. It's really fun.
Glee, capital Glee, the TV show, not
right.
Yeah.
Great title too.
Yeah, East Side Story. I think there is
something
called. You should check that title because I believe there is a movie called East Side Story. So how do I make this pitch? There's so much I love about it. I really do. Why is Susanna crying? I never thought about that. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I guess the man's leaving, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Again, I see the external conflict here. And by the way, I want to know what the worst case scenario, ruining her budding career. I want that to have more stakes, ruining her budding career.
Really, isn't the highest stakes here that she could help with world peace?
On the plus side, on the downside,
the
whole
right?
place could get blown up, or
Right.
they could shoot each other.
But
I don't know.
When the questions at the end are, can she find a performance venue? I'm like, to me, that's no stakes.
Yeah, right.
Whether she can find a performance. I would start with, will this ruin her budding career? Can she help the world become a better place, or will everything?
But I mean, this has all the, if this goes wrong, this could be an
That's
international
what I'm saying.
incident. Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
right.
That performance venue and will VIPs attend are the smallest issues here. So I'd like to see you raise that to the highest possible.
At its worst, you could become a viral story, and people could be coming after you with death threats, the person who's doing this.
Right.
And that's the way the world is now. So I think your stakes need to be higher at the end. I was saying about an internal and external conflict. There's plenty of external conflict, but what is this? There's got to be more about Jennifer Westfield, I feel like, in here. Like, what does she desperately want in life that she doesn't have at the beginning of the story, and how does that change what she desperately wants? And there's also no other characters in the story.
The students, but we don't get to know who
I
they are.
want to know a little bit about who they are and who's the villain in the story, who's opposing her in all of this.
Well, she's been set up to fail, so either her boss or something.
I don't know by whom.
Yeah.
There's nobody in this pitch that makes me go, ooh, I hate them and I want them. Ooh, I hope they get what's coming to in the end. And that's what we want out of a villain in a story like this.
I don't understand why this is new adult.
Well, it's a bunch of teenagers. Glee is
new adult is a very hard category, and I don't see a lot of this. There are students, but there's also a lot of adults in the book. So I'm not sure that I would pitch it that way.
Yeah, maybe not.
I think it's super fun, but that doesn't mean, like if you think about The Devil Wears Prada, that's not new adult.
But Glee is kind of,
but TV is different in that way.
It's a high school story.
It's high school. This is not, our lead character is a woman with a job.
Yeah, right. No, I agree. I agree.
So the idea of them performing West Side Story and her getting them together to do folk songs.
Again, it feels so contemporary and so wonderful. It's really a good idea for a story.
Okay.
Just me?
Mm-hmm.
Love, Lust, and Romance in the Age of #MeToo. Consent Made Sexy for All Genders by Veronica Monet. Whether you are dating or in a long-term relationship, it's crucial that you know how to say no to things you don't want to do. But that can be difficult when you're afraid of damaging the connections you care about. We need a way to set boundaries while creating intimacy. We need to know how to say no with joy and enthusiasm. And we need to be able to do that even when we are naked and in the throes of passion. Relationship coach Veronica Monet revolutionizes the way we express our preferences in an intimate context while keeping the connection we want. Instead of giving in or compromising because we don't want to hurt her feelings or make him, her mad or lose the relationship, you can make your preferences and boundaries clear and firm while drawing your person closer to you and creating more connection. Too many of us have learned to feel ashamed about our no. So we may mumble, yell a defiant no. Not surprisingly, our no's are often met with hurt feelings, but it doesn't have to be that way. Saying no can bring us closer to each other and spark sexual interest if you know how to do it. Veronica's simple and sexy 5-step formula creates love, lust, and romance, especially in the age of #MeToo. Well, this couldn't be any more timely. Good Lordy, Miss Lordy.
I think this is such a wonderful idea for a book and so necessary, and people are totally confused.
Men, women.
Yeah.
There's
and then every age.
Every age.
Like you could be
teenagers
90 and have no idea. And
absolutely.
19.
I was just talking to one of my contemporaries is like, I don't even know how to say to a woman, wow, you look nice. Like, am I sexually harassing her if I say you look nice? Like, people are just so confused And it's great that the world is changing so that people aren't compelled to do things they don't want to do. That's where I love the beginning of this. It's crucial to know how to say no to things you don't want to do.
Right.
Like how that's something so simple, and yet we as a culture seem completely lost in that area.
The other thing I love is that what Veronica is saying is that you can say no and have it be something that increases your sexual desire,
and your
not something that put a
and your connection to people. I totally agree with that. It's such a timely idea.
Now, one thing that David didn't read and that I think should come out of the pitch is there's lots of quotations.
Yes, there are so many quotations.
I would, if anything, put them in italics instead.
Yeah.
And
it just reads awkward when you have that many of them.
And also at the very end, you say 5-step formula. If you're going to put a 5-step formula, we need the bullets with what the 5 steps are, or I would just take that out.
I like the idea of a 5-step formula because it seems doable then. Oh, there's just 5 steps? Oh, well, geez, I think I
okay, well, then I would bullet point them.
I probably would bullet point it.
Yeah.
And again, like, because this is a nonfiction book and it's about something that's so, difficult, quite frankly, we need to know why, Veronica, you say you're a relationship coach. But I mean, it's like in Charlie Brown when Lucy puts up the sign, the doctor's in. I mean, anybody can call himself a relation coach, but Veronica Monet is a name that I know, and you've been doing this for many, many years and has other books. And so you proving why you're the person we need to listen to is crucial, absolutely crucial. And I know you have the credits and the bona fides to back that up. So just a sentence or two about your credentials is going to be absolutely crucial to you getting a book deal for this.
Yeah,
but
this is another one where writing an article could really help you to get a book deal, because this could go viral.
Really could. And there seems to be a new instance of this, every week.
Right. It also could be pitched at different, like you could pitch a version of this to 17, for example, or
Teen
Vogue.
Oh, yeah.
And you could pitch a version of this to like O Magazine, which caters to a much older demographic.
Or to Howard Stern, honestly, for that matter. I mean, it's got so many applications, but well done. Well done.
Okay. So is this you or me?
I just read that, so I think it's you. You want me to read it?
No. Okay. More Than Meets the Eye by Tonya Priest. 17-year-old Cordelia never lets anything get her down. But when the anniversary of the explosion that killed her dad triggers nightmares and panic attacks, her mom insists on counseling. The diagnosis, PTSD. Treatment, eye movement therapy. Cordelia's opinion, absurd. Therapy does have a bright side, though. A hot guy named Gino she meets in the waiting room. Gino's pop punk style and sense of humor grab her attention. As they bond over music, this discovery of why he's in therapy softens her tough exterior. But sharing her own tragedy with him raises questions surrounding her dad's death. While she isn't entirely sure she wants to find answers, eye movement therapy begins to defy her expectations. Repressed memories surface that could hold the key to what's causing her pyrophobia and nightmares. Cordelia's recovery hinges on allowing certain walls and pedestals to crumble. First, she must face painful truths not only about herself, but also the father she idolized. If she isn't careful, her avoidance habits may push everyone away, including Gino, the musical soulmate she's always hoped for. More Than Meets the Eye is contemporary YA fiction and was selected as a finalist for the Joan Lowry Nixon Memorial Award at the 2018 Houston SCBWI Conference. It will appeal to fans of Carolyn Mackler and Emery Lloyd and delivers a surprising twist, like Tamara Ireland Stone's Every Last Word. I consulted a therapist trained in EMDR and drew on my own experience with the treatment as well.
Well done. Well done.
Really well done.
Really interesting story. Is this? Yeah, it's a YA. Yeah. It felt like a YA.
Totally.
I'm glad you put that in there.
Yeah.
All right. So, there's just so much to like about this pitch. This right from the beginning, the stakes are high, boy. Her dad's dead and she has to go to counseling and she's reluctant. I mean, we've seen that, the reluctant person going to therapy many times, but this has a nice twist to that. And of course, the hot.
I love she meets the hot guy at therapy.
I just read The Fault in Our Stars, and it's a
Uh-huh.
little bit like that. It not in a
Right. No, in a
derivative
good way.
in a good way.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Now, Gino's pop punk style and sense of humor grab her. Those are ideas.
Mhm.
I want to see does he have a mohawk, or does he have a tattoo, or what is pop punk style? I didn't even know. And when I saw it, I might go, yeah, there's pop punk style. But how is Gino's different? Make him come to life for us by using word pictures, and show us you can create a character very quickly, and humor. You should have him say something funny, so we get to go, oh, that dude's funny, man.
Right.
And you should describe him in a way that makes us go, oh my God, he sounds so hot, rather than just say he's hot.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing that was really impressive to me is that you won this award at SCBWI. So for anyone who's writing any kind of children's literature, being a part of SCBWI, the Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, is one of the best things you can do to help your career as a writer, because it's an organization that will give you so much education
and support.
And
they have conferences all over the country.
They have conferences and everything. And all of these awards that they have at the local chapters really are meaningful to people in publishing. So the fact that you've already taken that step, and all of these comp titles, you know your genre.
That's fantastic,
it's
man.
Wonderful.
It's such a deep dive.
The title is, I get it because it's EMDR and the I thing, but it feels like a title I've seen a million times before.
Generic, and this story is not generic.
I do love the EMDR. I think that's really cool in a YA story.
Cool.
I have not seen that.
I have not seen it either.
And I almost wonder if eye movement might be in the title, or something more directly tied to EMDR. So anyway, there's lots to love in here.
One other thing that I wanted to say was that, two things actually. Music. I want more specificity as to what music they're bonding over. I mean, that'll define who they are. Yeah. You know, are they going retro? Are they talking about the Talking Heads? Are they talking about Bruno Mars, or what? You know, that'll give us a big clue as to who they are. And also, this sentence feels like it's a lot of ideas. Recovery hinges on allowing certain walls and pedestals to crumble. Yeah, that just sounds like an idea to me. When you get into you know, her having to examine whether her father is not the hero she thought, then I'm like, oh, well, that's good. Girls Break Things. That's a good title. I like it. By Amren Ortega. High school senior Joyce Lee Stone.
I think it's Lou.
High school senior Joyce Lou Stone is the odd one out in her family. While her moms are both talented artists, Joyce is only interested in one thing: robotics. Well, robotics and dating her teammate, Nix. But Joyce isn't ready to admit to herself that she actually has something in common with her moms. That's good. When Nix breaks her ankle in a freak accident, the school board bans their combat robotics team from competing in a prestigious tournament. But the team isn't that easily defeated. They decide to compete in secret no matter the cost, even if that cost is expulsion. As the competition advances, Joyce blurts out her feelings for Nix and discovers that Nix has been crushing on her too. They promise the team not to let the relationship affect the competition, but high school love isn't that easy to control. Don't I know it? Joyce and Nix forget to bring an important part to their competition, seriously jeopardizing their chances of winning the state championship and the college scholarship Joyce needs to attend her dream school. It's up to Joyce to stitch the team back together and win the competition and get the girl. Girls Break Things combines the female-female romance of How to Make a Wish with the Discovery Channel show BattleBots. Girl Breaks Things is 70,000 word, hashtag own voices, LGB2. YA contemporary work based on my partner's experience as a half Taiwanese high school student and my own coming out.
This is great.
So fun.
It's so fun. And first of all, the title is brilliant.
So good.
It's so good. It sounds like a movie too, doesn't it?
Totally.
It just screams that. Okay, so few favorite things here. While her moms are both talented artists, you don't say her lesbian mothers. You just her moms are.
It's so good, right?
It's so good.
Because it takes you a second, and then you go, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then when you say she doesn't want to have anything in common with her moms, and that was it's great.
Yeah, it's really
the whole
good.
setup
It's
is
really good. It's
absolute-
well written. It's well
really
done.
well done. The other thing that I love is I know that you are you show your knowledge of YA. The hashtag Own Voices is a really big thing right now in YA, and you show me that you know exactly where this goes. I think the How to Make a Wish with the Discovery Channel show BattleBots is really
I've
really fun.
never heard that before.
Yeah. So for me, there's certain places where the pitch gets a little generic.
I thought so too.
That's my issue. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go.
So I'm trying to find one of those places now. It's up to Joyce to stitch the team back together.
They
and
promised
win
the team not to let the
relationship affect
the competition. Yeah. So here's places.
And even get the girl. How many times?
Right.
I know you're making a pun, but it does feel a little cliche-ish to me.
Whereas when you say has been crushing on her too, I like that
really
because it's contemporary language and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I think like the pitch where we read about, what was it, the glitter on the stickers or whatever.
The ducks. Yes.
It needs a little more of that kind of flavor to it.
Well, even at the beginning with the two moms. And
absolutely.
Like, that felt very fresh.
But the robotics, I feel like could come alive, and it doesn't.
Yeah. And I want to know more about, just a tiny bit about, why she loved robots and the robots themselves, which should be unique given who these people are. Now, there also was a big controversy about some robotics team. I think, was it girls? I can't remember, but who was banned from some competition. So it's almost like, pulled from the headlines as well, which I love. But really, really great job.
So fun. Okay. This next pitch is Untitled by Brianna Bolduc. Rowan Lucas is pretty much like any other 16-year-old girl. She lives with her Aunt Hannah and cousin April in futuristic New Earth, where space shuttles replace cars and everyone rushes to buy the newest version of the HoloPad. She's Japanese American and can always be spotted wearing her beloved red Converse high tops with the rubber peeling off the toe and the red color slowly retreating. Rowan has her own teenage problems, trying to live up to her cousin's expectations, dealing with the after effects of a war that happened 15 years ago, and, of course, being a teenager. But when her cousin accepts a job from the president himself, Rowan knows something is wrong. With the help of a police officer in training that has his own mysteries and his younger brother that is pretty much a mastermind, Rowan decides to figure out the truth about her cousin's acceptance of the mysterious job offering while also trying to figure out more about the police guy that she doesn't really know without being weird about it. My work does not currently have a title. Sorry about that. My name is Brianna and I am 14 years old.
God.
My work was written as part of my first NaNoWriMo, which I took part in this year. It is just under 36,000 words and is a YA sci-fi mystery about sticking up for what you believe in and the true meaning of family, even if that means traveling to a different planet to figure out what exactly your cousin left you for why exactly your cousin left you for some presidential job. I was inspired by Hank Green's Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which is also a sci-fi, and the characters in Marissa Meyer's Lunar Chronicle series.
Well, that's just embarrassing because when I think of what I was doing at 14, it was not this, let me tell you. It's really a fun story and really interesting.
It's got some wonderful details in it. Like she can always be spotted wearing her beloved red Converse tops with the rubber peeling off the toe.
Yeah,
You could just see that so well. And I think it's such a nice mashup of what feels like a teenager today and sci-fi.
Yeah, and the future.
Yeah. So I would like a little more world building about this particular place.
Yeah. We have shuttle cars replacing cars and a HoloPad. I mean, maybe you just could say a little bit about what a HoloPad is, how it's different from my iPad. And this is for everybody. We haven't really talked about this, but just to have a very brief physical descriptor of Rowan and the cousin would be great. And why does she live with her aunt and not her parents? That seems to be odd to me.
I like that though, because she's like pretty much any other 16-year-old girl. In this world, does that mean that everybody lives with their aunt and their cousin rather than their parents? If that's the case, we need to understand a little bit more about that.
I didn't really like the first line, to be honest with you, because what is there's not such a thing as every teenage girl.
I just like the
juxtaposition. Yeah. But I mean, your first line is such an important part of this whole thing.
This is also, you call this a sci-fi mystery, but a mystery is a very particular thing, and this doesn't fit into that genre for me. So if it has a thread of mystery, that's okay. But to call it a mystery typically means that there's a dead body, and you have to figure out who killed, or a theft or something.
Yes. And
here you just have a cousin who's accepted a job. So that doesn't qualify for me as
unless
mystery.
There's more mystery detail in here that you're not putting in the pitch.
Right.
If there's some conspiracy that the police are in on, or the president is using the cousin for some horrible thing, and that should be in the pitch then.
I also just want to say, if you have written this well at 14, if you continue to do this,
you're gonna be
and if you do Nano every year, like this is why part of the reason why we think NaNoWriMo is so special is that not just is it giving adults a creative outlet, but they touch so many kids' lives and are in classrooms as well. And this pitch is such a wonderful example of how getting kids writing is kids like Brianna writing like this. I mean, just imagine what her pitches and her books are going to be like in 10 years from now.
Brianna, you are a very talented writer. You have a huge, bright future ahead of you as an author.
Exactly.
Expect the unexpected. Denise Stefania Stoyan, an abused, engaged woman, starts a new illegal life with her stalker teenager sweetheart.
That's it. So this is what we call an elevator pitch. And
actually it's more like a log line.
It's a log line, or it could be an elevator pitch.
An elevator pitch typically is this book meets that book.
Doesn't always have to be.
But this feels more like a log line.
So this would be over the idea of an elevator pitch or a log line is something that can be said so quickly that by the time you get from one floor of an elevator to the next, it's over. And it's wonderful to have a great log line. And in this log line, there's a lot of
There's
stuff.
a lot of great stuff in there.
I mean, this is a packed log line.
It is.
So you have the abused and engaged woman.
Illegal life.
Stalker teenager sweetheart.
It's great. Now we just need the rest of it. You see what these other pitches are like if you watch this. And for everybody, go to your local bookstore, go to the library, go to the place where your book is going to live, and just read the back of 100 books that are in the same category of yours, and read the pitches and see what you like about them, and see what works and what doesn't work, and stuff that you love and is great. You can borrow a little bit of that. We don't call it stealing. We call it paying homage. So this is a great start, and it sounds like an amazing story, but we need character, specificity. We need a plot with a beginning and a middle and just about up to the ending where you don't give us away the climax.
Yep. Great
start. Should I read the next one too?
Sure.
The Twilight Stone by Fiona Kehoe. For a normal human like May, having one of the mysterious Fae for a boyfriend should really be more difficult than it is. Things in her life are pretty simple up until the day another of the Fae kidnaps him, dragging May into a magical world she doesn't understand. When she meets the kidnapper face to face, he threatens to send her boyfriend's head in a box if she doesn't bring the Twilight Stone to him. As if that wasn't enough, He then promises that her boyfriend won't be the only loved one whose head she'll find in a box on her doorstep if she fails. May doesn't react well to being threatened. She'd rather show the kidnapper the barrel of her revolver, but it seems the Fae aren't as impressed by bullets as most humans. She also has no idea what the Twilight Stone is, let alone where it is, and no one she talks to seems to know either. Unfortunately, she isn't the only one interested in the stone's whereabouts. Just as she thinks she's getting close, a strange group of Fae appears, willing to kill her if it means keeping the Twilight Stone out of her hands. Her neighbor, a Sidhe, S-I-D-H-E, Sidhe, whose motivation for helping her is unclear, and a gnome who deals in both Fae gems and information are unlikely allies in the race to solve her loved ones. With their help, May may finally locate the Twilight Zone.
Stone.
God, I keep saying it, don't I? With her help, May finally locate the Twilight Stone, or at the very least, save her loved ones.
Great title.
Yeah.
I love the Twilight Stone. When we say familiar but different, that is like totally the perfect example of that. So it's really, really fun. And you remember it really easily, which is a great thing with the title. So
classic high stakes.
Classic
right?
high stakes. Yep. This is a pitch that the magic, we understand that it is a magical world, but I don't know what the magical world is, and I don't even get an understanding of what the Fae is. So
what do they look like? What powers do they have? How do they move around? How do they, what do they have a magic wand? Are they green? I don't know any of those, answer any of those questions.
Yeah. So I think, structurally, this is all good. It leads to the right place and everything, yeah. But I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see it.
Yeah.
And that when you are doing this kind of fantasy, that is
crucial.
So important. Because again, we need to know what is special about your world. Why do we want to enter this world?
How is your world different than all the other fairy worlds that we've seen? And there've been, many, many, many of them.
Yeah. She sounds like an interesting character. She doesn't react well to being threatened, but there's a lot of sort of telling here in that kind of way as well. Where how does she react when she's threatened? Like it would be interesting to see her in motion in some way.
Right.
I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there are no comparable titles, so we don't exactly know where this book's. Is this a teenage book? It could be. It's I don't know. I'm not sure
if it's YA or not.
So these comparable titles are going to be very helpful in that regard. But I mean, there's just so much to like in this story. And again, it has a familiar feel, but it is unique. It has a bit of a noirish feel to it, with a strong female protagonist at the middle. I don't quite get enough of a sense of who the villain is either, what the villain looks like, and why the villain is doing this stuff.
Well, a sentence that really intrigued me was, and a gnome who deals in both Fae gems and information. Right. That suddenly the gems, they spoke to me. So more details like that would be great.
Yes. I mean, it is kind of like fairy noir.
Right.
So that's a cool
I like
category.
That. Yep. Okay. The Fire Under the Mountain by Kirstie Ellen, YA high fantasy. In a dying world of magic, 5 tribes are divided against each other. A 6th has not been seen for centuries. A tyrannical king with twisted secrets readies himself for war, but one girl holds the answers to uniting magic and saving the planet. The 6 tribes of Ronel have been divided for centuries, shutting off their magic from each other. But their separation means the planet is dying, and with it, its people. In a battle for power, tribes will turn against each other. Magic will be stolen, and unknown secrets will be revealed as the ruthless, deranged king of the Sky Tribe, Kino, slaughters all who stand in his way. Yet one brave and clever girl is the planet's last hope. Charmé finds herself unwittingly tasked with a quest to unite the people of Rennell. It's a race against time to not only bring the tribes together before all is lost, but to also find the missing sixth tribe. From the dark tunnels of the Earth Tribe to the murky waters of the Underwater Kingdom, Charmé will face her worst fears, find help in unexpected places, and stand heroically for what she believes in. While Charmé prepares to face the odds alone, Kino's son Radon escapes the abuse of his father, fleeing his home and his own mission to save Rennell. In a weaving of tales, these two fated beings will find the answer to the eternal question, what difference can one person make?
Again, a cool story. I mean, it really feels like sort of has an epic quality with the six tribes and the dying world. And yeah, it's a really interesting setup and really well done. And again, a plucky, a brave, clever girl who's being called upon to be our hero / heroine. It's cool how many females are in the center of so many of these pictures,
absolutely.
right? I love that. Again, I'm going to say that the world building, I don't quite see this world yet. And it's so important for us to just visualize what this world is. How is the planet dying? What does it look like? Again, this pitch it needs to be more specific, I feel like.
Yeah. I think structurally it's very strong.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel like
think
there's
it's a good story, a good plot.
I think there's a lot of cliche in
there
it.
is. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And that is a place where things can come alive that feel just, they sit on the page right now.
Yeah.
So let me just find.
Well, I have one.
Yeah.
Where she has to face her worst fears.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen that.
It's a race against time. Yeah.
What are her worst fears? I don't even know what her worst fears are. I mean, apart from obviously, her planet being destroyed, but that says again, there has to be an internal thing that she's fighting against as well. What difference can one person make? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a cliche you hear in the voiceover of a million stories and movies. Mm-hmm. So the originality, the story is very original. It feels like it's unique, but the language doesn't raise up to the level of the plot, I feel like. And again, we have no comparable titles to know where this book sits on the shelf. So I think if you fix those things, this is a really cool story that I think is going to appeal to a lot of people. Yeah.
Okay, that was the last pitch, people. So we are we're going to make a few announcements, and then we are going to announce the winner. And then we're going to take questions, and we've had lots of questions come in. So thank you for being patient.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes. I said earlier at the incorrect time that fan favorite, we do this fan favorite thing. So we're going to put up the pitches and people get to vote beginning tomorrow, and it runs through April 1st. It's on our website, www.
And the winner
book gets
an hour consultation with us.
www.thebookdoctors.com.
And the hour consultation is worth $250, so it's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'd like to receive information on getting published and opportunities to pitch us, we have a newsletter that comes out very regularly.
And it also says, our newsletter says where we're doing live events.
Yeah, we have a bunch of events coming up.
So we do live Pitchapaloozas.
Yes,
like we have one coming up on March 23rd in Montclair, New Jersey at the Montclair Book Festival.
In
our home. And then we're going to be in LA.
We have amazing people on our panels. You get to pitch to like top editors, top agents, and these are people who you would literally never get to have FaceTime with. Yeah. And you get to stand there and pitch in front of an audience. And on our YouTube channel are tons of videos about all the things we're talking about today, about how to craft a pitch. I think on tomorrow or Monday, we have a video going up about comp titles. So tons of the stuff that we talk about, voice, etc., right? SCBWI and writing conferences, all that stuff is up there. Okay. So questions?
No, I think we're going to announce the winner, and then we're going to do the questions.
Well, we want to do the questions first and then announce the winner. That's the climax of the show.
Oh, okay.
That's the big ending.
Okay.
You put the big ending at the
Sorry.
end. That's
Okay.
All right.
All right. So, what advice do you have for getting an agent? That's a big question.
Well, it's funny because when I got an agent, I married her. So it's I feel strangely qualified to answer that question. First thing is research.
Mm-hmm.
This is a much neglected part of this process. You need to research. When I'm doing a book, I come up with 15 titles of books that are similar and yet different to my book. And I research who agented those books. And I find out everything I possibly can about them. There's a fine line, I'm going to warn you, between research and stalking. Don't go to their house and sit across the street with binoculars. However, find out where they went to school, high school, where they went to college, what are their passions, what are their hobbies.
Most importantly, what books do they represent?
Agented? Yes. Find out any way you can connect with that person. And also literally ask everyone you know. That's how I found my agent and my wife. I asked everyone I know. I said, I've written a book. Do you know anybody who might like to read it or whatever? And this was my acting agent. And she said, oh, my goddaughter is a literary agent. So,
and the reason that we concentrate on the pitch so much is because the pitch is what can unlock doors, not just to agents, but to publishers. Yeah. And if you self-publish, that's what people are going to read when they go to wherever they're going to buy your book. And
I'll say one last thing about the agent process. Perseverance and follow-up.
Yeah.
Follow up in a kind and gentle way. If I don't hear from an agent in 3 weeks to a month, I follow up gently and lovingly with a link to something that I've done that's cool.
So there's the question of what is a comparative title. I think people probably already got that by now.
I should hope.
But let us say this. I also saw a lot of stuff in the chat about why can't I compare my book to Harry Potter or whatever. So displaying, we keep saying this person displayed their knowledge of the shelf.
Right.
So what that means is that you are showing to someone that you actually have read in this category and know what's out there, etc. So one thing that is the biggest turnoff to anyone in publishing is, let's say you're writing a memoir and they say, oh, what memoir is this like? And you say, oh, I don't really read memoirs. That is going to make someone turn their back on you and walk away as quickly as possible. Yeah. Whereas if you can discuss books that aren't just #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, but books that librarians love, that the press love, that maybe didn't make a bestseller list, but that are excellent books, or that have fan communities or whatever, that's going to give the person the sense that you really know what you're doing.
And don't ever slag another book. Don't ever say bad things about another book in public. You say, yeah, readers of this book will like my book and it's different in this way. We were doing a Pitchapalooza once with an agent who sold $1 million books many times. And this person came up and said, my book is like Harry Potter. And out of the side of his mouth, he's like, no, it's not.
Right.
Because it won't be. There's no,
you're
setting you up. It's setting yourself up for someone saying, no, you're not Harry. You're not J.K. Rowling, because you're not going to sell 1 billion books.
So next question. If the book is in first person, should the pitch be? My answer to that is only for memoir should your pitch be in first person. Yeah, but if you're writing fiction, generally it's very awkward to write it.
You might have a little tiny 1 or 2 lines from the book that might be in first person, but the pitch should be in probably third person.
When writing a pitch for fantasy, should the main focus be the worlds?
Not the main focus, because people read books because they fall in love, novels particularly, with the characters. Character is everything. So we need to have a character that we fall in love with, who's filled with flaws, who's trying to do something, who desperately wants something they don't have. And that desire changes throughout the course of the book as they change. However, if you're writing fantasy or science fiction, yes, world building is absolutely crucial, because this is your audition to show us what a great writer you are, and that you can build a world quickly and succinctly where we go, wow, that looks cool. I haven't quite seen that before. So yes, world building is absolutely essential to those kinds of books.
Next question, were we meant to include our credentials in the pitch? So here's the thing. The pitch is the thing that is this key that you hope is going to unlock people's interests. If you have credentials that are going to make someone go, wow, you've won an award, you're a journalist at a major paper, whatever it is.
Even if we had a client who had been on the Olympic bobsledding team. Well, it had nothing to do with being a writer, but you know inherently that if somebody has been an Olympian athlete, they're disciplined, they show up, they're relentless, they never stop, they're high achievers. If you can do that, you can probably do well in the publishing world.
Can you use film and TV comps for your comp titles?
Yes, but again, you don't want to have, this is Gone with the Wind meets Game of Thrones. Although that sounds like a really cool.
I would also say that you don't want to have no books.
No,
because if you have no books, that shows a lack of knowledge as well.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I wonder, what would it be like to pitch a pastiche or a retelling? I wonder if there would be drastic differences. I'm not sure I understand that. Do you?
A pastiche? No, I don't know quite what they mean by that, but a retelling I certainly do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, if your retellings of books and reboots of stories are very, very popular, and for good reason. You want to show how your retelling is different and unique from the original story. What are you going to add to the story that we haven't seen yet? Like Wicked is a great example of a retelling of a story. Of course, it's the story of the Wizard of Oz, only told from the Wicked Witch's point of view. So we get a whole new slant on stories and characters that we know and love. So that mean hurry up? Now I've slowed everything down. Uniqueness. Yes, here's this brand, this big story we all know and love. How are you going to inject something new and contemporary? How are you going to make it different in a way that makes us go, oh, wow, that's cool. These are familiar characters, but I never thought about them like that. Okay,
fiction or nonfiction, how do you know which to do if you have a story that's based on something true? So that's a very good question. So sometimes you have to make something fiction because you know you're going to get sued, or that you just simply for your own life.
Everyone you've ever known and loved is going to hate you when the book comes out.
Exactly.
If you don't care about that, great. Most people do.
In general, it is easier to sell something as nonfiction than as fiction. But memoir is a very tight category, and it can be very difficult to sell a memoir. So I think the answer is you have to decide what you want to do.
Absolutely.
There is no answer.
And again,
to
do
that
your
question.
research, read a bunch of memoirs, and read based on true stories. Yeah.
Okay. What happens when my pitch echoes my synopsis or vice versa? That's okay. There is overlap.
They're two different beasts.
They're two different beasts, but they can share some.
They have to share the same story, of course.
Yeah. The thing that you don't want your pitch to be is a dry recapitulation of the plot.
Which is what the synopsis is.
Which is what a synopsis has to be.
So you don't want to make the pitch, and you don't want the synopsis to be too long, because then it feels like it's part of the book. Like, this is what the book's going to be like. A synopsis is something usually that an agent or an editor wants to know what the story is, like what the plot points are going to be.
How can you find out what your genres are? Okay, genres. I'm so glad someone asked this.
Yeah.
And this gets back to reading.
Yeah.
You have to read so much before you can start pitching. Why? Because you have to understand where your book belongs on the shelf.
Yeah.
If you don't know what genre you're in, you're not ready to go out with your book. Anyone who has done all the research that they need to do is able to say what genre their book is in. And we find all the time that this is not the case when people start pitching. You know, they might say that their book is a mystery, let's say, and it's not a mystery. They might say their book is a thriller.
My favorite one is a romance.
Right.
Because when you say a book is a romance, there's a blueprint for a romance book. And every Harlequin book that's a romance book, that has this formula. On page 1, this has to happen. On page 10, this has to happen. There's certain language that has to be included in a romance. There's plot twists that have to happen somewhere in the plot itself. So you can say this book is a piece of women's fiction that has romance in it, but that does not a romance make. And the best way to learn what category your book is in is to go to the bookstore and look in the bookstore and say, where is my book going to fit? And go to the YA and go to the adult and go to the women's fiction and literary fiction, commercial fiction, and look at the books and read the first page of the book and read the flap copy, the pitch for the book, and see where your book is going to fit.
Yeah,
what
someone just said, where
to
can I find professional pitches? You can find them on the flaps and backs of books.
Literally every book ever
on
written.
Amazon, the description for every book is the pitch.
I'm sorry.
Oh, good. No, I'm going on to the next
So,
slide.
and when you're in the bookstore or the library, talk to a librarian, talk to a bookstore person who works there. And when, you know, the lines aren't crazy and the cash register's not ringing like lunatics, ask them, talk to them about your book. Where would this fit into your bookstore? And if you go to a bookstore and you do this, you must buy a book. And that's not such a bad thing.
So some confusion about comp titles. How people say I can't find a comp title for my book.
All the time.
So comp titles can mean anything from a similar voice with a completely different topic. It could mean a similar setting, but a completely different kind of book. There are all different ways that you can compare your books to others. So you're not looking, if you're writing a YA novel about a Taiwanese girl who wants to become a chef, you don't want to just compare it to a book about another YA novel about a Taiwanese girl who wants to become a chef.
People make the mistake of thinking they have to find a comparable title that's exactly like their book. There
Right.
is no other book exactly like your book. And if there is,
you're in
you have
trouble.
a serious
You're
problem.
in serious trouble.
It's the broad strokes, big ideas. Let's give a good example. Our book, The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published, is a book about, you know, how to get your book published. And yet our comp title is the What to Expect When You're Expecting for Books and Publishing.
All right, I'm going to run through very quickly a few last questions because it's over 2 hours and I know people want to get going. So for teen writers, does age need to be mentioned in the bio? I definitely think it should.
Speed round, let's go.
Yeah. Inward versus outward conflict in pitches. I think you could see in a number of the pitches today where you got that nice balance, and in other ones where you didn't see it at all. It's absolutely achievable, but it takes reading a lot of pitches to see how people balance that out. If you've had an agent before, do not mention it when you're querying new agents, and that's a much bigger topic that we can't explain right here, but we're happy to answer that through email. If you write multi-genre, it's important to publish under a different name, not necessarily, but sometimes, like if you're writing erotic fiction and you're writing Christian fiction, you'd want 2 different names.
After my first memoir, Penguin approached me to write a YA book. And my first memoir is very adult, lots of adult situations in it. And they wouldn't let me use my real name because it was too incendiary.
Yeah, okay.
Oof.
Drum roll.
Let's give a round of applause to all of our pitchers. Awesome, awesome pitches.
Every single person who sent in a pitch that didn't get read tonight.
It doesn't mean it wasn't good and great.
It doesn't mean that at all. Okay. So we do have a winner.
We do.
It was very difficult. And the winner is Polyglot by Devyn Fussman. And we
stand up, Devyn. Take a bow. Take a bow.
I wonder if Devyn is on here or not. This was the pitch about the girl who, the middle grade novel about the girl who loves languages. And it was just, talk about inner and outer.
Yeah.
It was a perfect balance of the inner and what was going on in her world around her. Original idea and really just beautifully written. So congratulations.
It was familiar yet unique, and we fell in love with the character.
We fell in love
That's
with
the
the
big thing.
character.
I fell in love with this girl. And I feel like if she walked in and she went, "Oh, bonjour, comment está?" I would say, "Oh, you're the girl from Polyglot.
Exactly.
Oh, I love you with your languages."
Yeah. So thank you all again.
God, thanks
and
everybody.
If you have ideas for YouTube videos that you want us to answer,
please.
Just put it in the comments of one of our videos. And we do this all the time. People ask us to do something, and then the next week or a couple weeks out, we'll do a video on that as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's exciting to see all these people chatting together. Sometimes in our Pitchapaloozas, people find writing partners.
And writing groups have been formed. Yes,
I'm actually thinking, Christy, can you let me know if we should leave this open a little bit so that people, if they want to, can
Continue.
Exchange information?
I just want to say again that our book, The Essential Guide to Getting Your Book Published, we worked very hard on that book. It took us a long time to write it. And we interviewed hundreds of authors, agents, everybody. And anybody who buys a copy of that book, just, Ariel, I'm literally in the middle of saying something.
I just thought about it.
Okay. All right, then. Can I continue?
Yes.
So anybody who buys a copy of our book, just send us a copy of the receipt at our email addresses, david@thebookdoctors.com. And you will be included in a webinar. You'll get all the information about it, and we will read your pitch in the webinar, and we will critique it, and you can ask us any questions you want.
Okay, last thing. We have put together, or we're in the midst of putting together, a free ebook. We've interviewed dozens of writers over the past decade about advice they have for other writers. And these are all big time famous
agents, editors, writers.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we, Christy will put in the chat the link where you can put your information when this is ready, which will be shortly.
The book is free, isn't it?
It's free. It's free. So you will be able to download it and get this free advice from all different kinds of writers. We hope it will be inspirational to you. And we are going to leave open this. We're not going to shut down the broadcast right now because we are going to allow you guys to talk. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we see you at the bookstore.